Well, hello there. How are you going today? Thanks for joining me. My name's Campbell. This is Autodidactic, and it's time to get in and have another look at the strange realm we find ourselves in.
We have quite literally been lied to about everything. They have created this Truman Show type simulation to keep the general public distracted from the truth, distracted from the biblical events that are actually happening in our world. And one of these events is actually the war in Iraq. Everybody meet Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was an ancient Sumerian king who ruled in what we now know is modern day Iraq. And he was a 17 to 20 foot giant. He was a demigod, which means he was half human and half God. Now, if you know your Bible, and if you followed my stories before on ancient Egyptian history and how we've been lied to, you know that these giants actually existed, and they were demonic human hybrids that ruled and ravaged the earth. Now, Gilgamesh was a barbaric king. He built up and ruled over the city of Uruk, which is, again, modern day Iraq. Now, you and I were taught that this is all just mythology, just like the ancient Egyptian half animal, half human gods that we read about. But when you read the Bible, you understand that this all, in fact, actually happened. So what does he have to do with the war in Iraq? This brings us to 2003, when German archaeologist Jörg Fassbinder was digging in modern-day Iraq, and he thought he found the city of Uruk.
Gilgamesh was simply a figment of myth. That was until Jörg Fassbinder and his team of archaeologists, using modern technology to look deep into the ground, discovered an entire ancient city beneath the desert, astonishingly laid out just as the city of Uruk, over which Gilgamesh had purportedly reigned, was described in the epic. There were houses and gardens and fields alongside an incredibly sophisticated system of canals, leading archaeologists to describe the site as Venice in the desert. More importantly, on the outskirts of the ancient city was what appeared to be a burial site, which archaeologists believed to be the tomb of the ancient king.
So Jörg goes to the authorities, tells them he thinks that he found the city of Uruk and possibly the tomb of Gilgamesh, and 5 months later, we invade Iraq. Now here's where it gets crazy, because not only did we invade Iraq immediately after his findings, our military builds a base directly over the ruins. Anyway, it's not a secret that the USA established a base in the old Babylonian city, destroyed some historical artifacts, and also took with them many of the artifacts. They constructed buildings and helicopter landing pads in the ancient city. It's not a secret that they were searching for something very important.
There were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
And, something's wrong. It's a whole world of deceit. We're going into Iraq to get artifacts, not to get anything but artifacts. That was the most important thing, they said.
But which artifacts?
I don't know. They just said artifacts. There were things in Iraq that were so old that we had to go get. Bush wanted those artifacts. It was very important.
Did we get them, and if so, where did they go?
We got them. They said they got everything they needed from that country.
Where is it?
I don't know. We have it.
Saddam Hussein was building a massive reconstruction of Babylon near the ancient city. Was he trying to hide something huge? Is that why the US decided to invade Iraq so fast and acquire the ancient relic? Everything in our world is biblical. Everything. All of the wars that are fought are biblical. It goes back to the Bible. It goes back to the demonic forces that are still alive today, the evidence of the demonic forces that are all around our world that they don't want you and I to know about. If you go on the Department of State's website and type in Gilgamesh, you are actually brought to the formal request for the ancient tomb of Gilgamesh. They were requesting his body from the burial site. So when we invaded Iraq, we went in and just took it all, and we actually had to return it. There's even an email from WikiLeaks that says requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. Our entire world is biblical. All over our world is evidence of the Bible, evidence of the giants, evidence of the Nephilim, evidence of all these ancient civilizations that are written about in the Bible. But unfortunately, our world is controlled by Satan. Our government is ran by Satan. So what does our government do? It comes in and it covers it up.
Everything's biblical, hey? What do you think about that? I think that the Bible has a lot of history in it. And I think there's some good stuff in the Bible, mainly the New Testament. I also don't believe that the New Testament and the Old Testament actually have anything to do with each other, apart from the fact that they've been put together in a book. And of course, the Bible, it's pretty much the most edited book, the most translated book. We know that they've taken a lot of it, more than half of the Bible has been taken out. So it's very edited and very scripted, right? It's been written so that we only get a certain perspective out of it, which is an issue, right? As far as Gilgamesh, yes, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest books apparently that we have, and that all comes from Babylonia, right? Well, Babylon, which is Iraq or was Iraq. And there are photos you can find of Gilgamesh. It looks like a body that's been in stasis. It's not a skeleton or anything. It's a body still. Is that real? I don't know. We also have the stories of Iraq, no, sorry, Afghanistan, where some Marines basically went into a cave and found a giant. A giant ran out, a big redhead giant, and started unaliving people, and there was a big battle. And we do have evidence of giants everywhere, skeletons and stuff, obviously stories. And then we have the photos from the 1800s and the early 1900s of the giants that were sort of 8, 9 feet tall. They weren't huge, massive. She said that Gilgamesh was, what was it, 17 to 20 feet, I think, which were bigger. Were all giants evil? I don't think so. I think that some of them could have been. We have the story, of the Nephilim and, the fallen angels coming down and mating with women and creating these psychotic giants that basically started eating everything, right? Is that true? Well, it could be, because we do also have this narrative of genetic manipulation in the past and all the cryptids, right? The animals, half humans, the mixture of animals into these crazy beasts. And like she said, we do see this in a lot of the old gods from Egypt. We see it in the narrative from Mesopotamia with, the gods with their eagle heads and everything on, and their little bags and their little watches and all that kind of stuff. Watches, and they are the watches. So it's interesting, but what were they doing there? What were the Americans doing? Why did they want to get into Iraq so much and take all this stuff? What were they looking for? Because I know that when they went into Iraq, they did go to the museum and basically take whatever they wanted, right? They looted the museums. I would say they're probably looking for ancient artifacts, like ancient technology that's going to aid them in, their wars, right? Which they love, their sacrifices. And, we heard this story as well from Germany, right? In World War II, that they were going around the world looking for the same thing, right? Artifacts like the Spear of Destiny and things like this. Basically, ancient weapons is what it sounds like, right? So that, where did all this technology come from? Especially in the last year or two, right? With all these drones and all this stuff, it's all coming out of DARPA, but where did it actually all come from? Because technology seems to be going pretty quick, right? In the last 100 years or so. So what do you think they were after? Do you think they were after ancient technology? Is that what it's all about? Of course, Iraq, up, with a lot of other countries, one of the things that they didn't have was a central bank. And I think that was part of it. But they were definitely in there that the Americans looting artifacts. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think they were after? And do you think that everything is biblical? I don't believe in the God narrative. I don't believe that the God, especially of the Old Testament, is the creator at all. Baal, Yahweh, all these, gods that demand sacrifice and worship and all this kind of stuff and run around, you know, leveling cities and destroying everything and unaliving all the people and animals in them. This was all done by the Lord, right? So not a very creator loving God, right? So I don't believe in that narrative of, there's only one life, then there's heaven and hell, and it's this eternal battle between God and the devil, which is just good and evil, right? God, or you add an O to God and you get good. You take the D away from devil, you get evil. It's just good and evil. in my opinion. It's just different frequencies, right? High and low frequencies, good and bad, right and wrong, all this kind of stuff. I think that's what the battle is. I don't necessarily think it's got anything to do with the Bible story, but I think that there is still some history left in the Bible that's worth contemplating for sure. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think's going on? Who do you think's ruling the world? What do you think the Bible is? Is it true? Is it not? What about the giants? Who were they? You know, why is all this hidden? And why do they still seem to be searching for ancient technologies?
So this video could cause severe ontological shock. This is a disclaimer. Never done this before, but I'm doing it because this one warrants it. Not being dramatic. If you're not ready for your entire belief system, your understanding of humans and our place on Earth and our history to be shattered, do not watch this video, and I'm being very serious. For the rest of you, let's go for a little ride. Our government has come out, even under oath, and said that they have no evidence that we are dealing with extraterrestrials. And I believe them. I didn't used to. Now I do, and this is why. My research has concluded this. The two most common encounters on Earth are the Greys and the Nordics, okay? The Greys are future humans. They are a synthetic AI fusion. We will table that for this video. What we're going to talk about are the Nordics, which are also future humans. In the future, they had to escape. At this point, they realize they can't escape physically because they're contained in this holofield. They're contained in the solar system. The only way to escape is to actually graduate spiritually, to ascend up. They can't for some reason. So they must escape because of things going on Earth. They escape to the past. Our ancient humans are the Atlanteans. They established a place called Atlantis. It means the land of Atlas. They came from the future. They went back in time because they had developed time travel. Time travel is basically just anti-gravity. Once you manipulate gravity, you also manipulate time. Space and time are intertwined. Okay. They went back in time. They established Atlantis to escape their future debacle that they got in. Okay. Now, as we go through time, what do we see? This is what led me to this. There's a cyclical cataclysm. Something happens every so many years that wipes out basically all of humanity. But right before it happens, just like with Noah, that's the most famous one, so we'll talk about that. Somebody comes and says, hey, this is coming. Flood's coming, man. Build a boat. Gives them all the information. How did they know? Okay? How do they know what's coming and how they know how to survive? And then after the flood, after every cataclysm, these beings come, tall, long hair, beards, carrying a bag, and they reseed civilization. So before a cataclysm, they save a certain amount of people. After a cataclysm, they make sure that those people survive and thrive. Why? They don't care so much about the individual person. They don't care if you're happy or healthy or get that raise or anything, but they damn sure don't want humanity to get wiped out. Because if we cease to exist, they cease to exist. They're future humans. That's why they need us. Pretty serious vested interest there. Okay, that's wild. Now, when we look at ancient, civilizations, ancient aliens, they're always going to these like megaliths and these monuments and these temples and cities and stuff. And they're very advanced, extremely advanced. I mean, cosmologically, architecturally, mathematically, engineering-wise, so advanced. There's so many things they did tens of thousands of years ago that we can't do today. Doesn't make any sense. It's because they came from the future, okay? Now, this is where it gets super interesting. They also put Easter eggs. They put breadcrumbs in to all of these civilizations. They built these giant monuments. They built these pyramids. They built all these things because they're leaving clues for themselves. They know when they see that statue of the bearded guy with the bag, that's them. It's a signature. That's why it's in every culture for thousands of years. These cultures had no contact with each other. Yet they made the statues that almost look the same, right? With same bag, same handbag. Why? That is meaning that a cataclysm occurred there, and these beings reseeded that population. They have to make sure humanity survives, period. But it's like, okay, think about it this way. If you went back to the caveman days, and you met a caveman, you wouldn't really care what ends up happening to that caveman. You'd be like, hey, he's going to have a life, a family, a job. He's going to, do caveman things, right? And he's going to learn his lessons and all that. It's not my job to intervene with that caveman. But you damn sure wouldn't go back in time and wipe out all the cavemen, right? Because we come from them. They evolve into us. See what I'm saying? We are like the cavemen to these these people, we can call them people, okay? They're people, they're humans from the future that went back in time to escape something, and then they have to make sure, it's a bootstrap paradox, they have to make sure that nothing happens to us, because if something happens to us, it happens to them. But they are also trying to fix their situation because they don't want to go in a loop. So they have to make sure that they continue to exist by making sure we continue to exist. But then they're also trying to fix things. I think they are carefully editing their timeline to make sure they don't end up in the same place, which is why we see Mandela effects, which is why we see strange time dilation things, which is why we see these interventions from them in these subtle ways when it comes to our nuclear weapons, when it comes to our, environment, stuff like that. They're intervening in certain ways to try to ensure a better outcome for them. So,
Time travel. What do you think? Is it true? Is it real? Is it happening? I mean, it could be. We definitely have the whole, Trump narrative with the books from Ingersoll Lockwood back from the 1800s, the last president, those ones, and the whole narrative with Tesla and Trump's uncle and Looking Glass, all this kind of stuff. And obviously we've had a lot of movies on time travel. But I mean, if time travel was real, wouldn't we be seeing more evidence of it? Is one question. Of course, we do have things like the Mandela effect and lots of strange things, and time travel, seems like it would answer that question maybe. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But when he talks about they have to come back and they can't, they need to basically let the human race exist, right, and go forward, or else they'll wipe out themselves. What they would have to do is make sure that certain humans stayed alive, wouldn't it? Because, if they've come back, it's their direct lineage that they would need to protect, or else they would not exist. The human race might, but they wouldn't if their ancestor got wiped out. So, how does that work? Is that maybe what all this surveillance is about? Who knows? But I mean, the main, I guess, issue I have with what he's saying is the whole timeline, right? He's clearly talking about evolution. I don't believe in the story of, the theory of evolution. I definitely don't believe it's happened like they've said it has. I think it's more of a creation. We don't have that. There's really not a lot of evidence for microevolution, right? For beings or animals changing into a completely different animal. There's evidence that, birds will change colors and things to suit their environment. But as far as a bird change, turning into a lizard, something like that, there's no evidence of that really at all. He talks about the cyclical resets, and I definitely believe that that's happening. So he's sort of mixing two narratives there a bit, but what he says is that they're coming back to fix things because there's a problem in the future. When I look around, it doesn't look like there's anyone here trying to fix things, right? Especially in the 2D world. I'm not saying that it's all true. I'm sure that most of it's not, but there is definitely a lot of wars and, famines and the cost of living and making people homeless and all this stuff. It seems to be getting harder for us, right? So it doesn't look like there is a fraternity of, you know, good people out there, good beings trying to change things, especially if they're from the future and they've got all this technology. Why don't they just stop it and get it sorted out if they're trying to save the future? And that's one of my big questions in that, I guess. And the whole narrative of, that we're at the epitome of, evolution now, evolution, right? The epitome of mankind, right? We're the best we've ever been. We're the most advanced and all this kind of stuff, when clearly we're not, right? Look around. Um, I don't like that narrative. It takes away from us, men and women. Sorry, there's something appearing above my head. Um, yeah, it takes away from us, and we can sort all these problems out. We have all the answers already. We know the narrative about inventors who come up with these amazing ideas that could really help all of mankind, and push us into the future, make the world a lot better for us. And what happens every single time? Their information gets stolen, it gets destroyed, It gets taken away and hidden until they can turn it into something to use against us. And very often the inventors are unalived. This is happening constantly. So without that, we would be so far ahead. We're literally and evidently being suppressed, right? So again, if they're coming back from the future and they're well advanced, why aren't they letting this new tech get out? So the story doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I understand where he's coming from with, Mandela effect and the timelines, that there's a lot of weird stuff going on, right? But please let me know your thoughts. What do you think about all that? Are aliens from the future? If not, where are they from? Because I don't believe in space aliens. I think a dimension is definitely an option, that they're coming from different frequencies, I would call it, densities, or maybe from under the ocean, I think is definitely another one. There's quite a bit of evidence that beings have come up from the waters, from the oceans, right? But yeah, from the future, maybe, but we don't need to go there, I don't think. And it doesn't make a lot of sense as far as they're not doing anything to save the past, right? All we've got is what, some weird Mandela effects. So it's interesting, but let me know your thoughts. What do you think about aliens? What's going on? Who are they? Where are they from? And what's happening? And also, thank you for spending time with me. If you are enjoying this and you do like my videos, please give me a like. Hype them up as well if you can. Of course, leave me your comments and subscribe. And yeah, share this video around. Let's get this information out to the wider public.
Anytime I think this rabbit hole can't go any deeper. Fucking in you go, Alice! Did you know humans aren't supposed to sleep 8 hours? No bullshit. You see, for most of human history, sleep was segmented. It wasn't one continuous block. You see, the natural sleep pattern is first sleep. This happens shortly after sunset, and is deep, heavy, and physically restoring. Then you naturally wake up. This is usually about 2 or 3 a.m. The second sleep, which happens after, is usually lighter, dream-rich, and emotionally integrative. You see, this isn't accidental. People are expected to wake up. That's how your body works. I mean, the sheer level of this stuff is absolutely mind-boggling. The body works nothing like they say it's supposed to. Key word, they say. I mean, let's just break this down for a second. First, Coca-Cola invented Christmas. Then the railroads quite literally invented time. Then they created breakfast. And now they fucked with sleep. Historical records actually show this. It's just named differently. It's not named first sleep, second sleep. The middle part where you're awake, yeah, that's called the watch. Or the between. Gives a little context there to that now, doesn't it? This was mostly a time for prayer, reflection, quiet thought, intimacy. Now, I'd say get your mind out of the gutter, but in this case, you are absolutely 100% correct. Yeah, that kind of intimacy. People didn't panic when they woke up. They understood it. They understood that this was the body's mid-process. And we come back to this again. You see, the body works on arcs. Gee, where have I heard arcs from before? It's almost like I'm onto something. You see, your nervous system doesn't regulate in straight lines. It regulates in arcs. Activation, pause, resolution, input, processing, and release. Sleep followed this same rule. Actually, it's a rule that I'm pretty sure is a constant throughout the universe. I've done a ton of research into it, and I'm writing a paper on it. Yeah, Ron Face History Dude's writing another paper. What of it? You see, split sleep wasn't 2 sleeps. It was 1 arc with a midpoint. That midpoint allows for emotional integration, reorientation, and nervous system settling. You see, if you remove the midpoint, the arc doesn't disappear. It just fails to resolve. You see now with industry, arc-based humans, no bueno. Factories required identical start times, long uninterrupted labor blocks, and predictable output. You see, the humans, that woke naturally at night don't fit, which is some bullshit. But hey, we can't mess with profits, you know. Instead of, working our industry around humans, we're going to evolve humans around industry. Make sure that profit margin stays solid. These motherfuckers. Actually, that's what I think I'm going to start calling the series. You see, then alertness varied by rhythm. Reflection time wasn't productive. Arc-based bodies don't scale. So society removed the midpoint, compressed the 2 4-hour sleeps into one, and redefined normal as continuously unconscious. After watching this video, I don't want to hear anybody tell anybody at any point in time, you should go to bed, you need your 8 hours. No, you fucking don't. You don't. You need 4 hours to wake up for a little bit, and then another 4 hours. You see, and then electric light finished the job. You see, night stopped being biological time. It then just became extended daytime. Now, you would think at this point, doctors would step in and be like, hey, this can cause a lot of fucking problems. Like, there's a lot of problems here that this can cause. Like, you can't break normal human biology into one sleep to fit industry. That's just not a thing. Nope, that's absolutely not what happened. You see, once society changed, medicine just adjusted to support it. Waking at night became insomnia, disorder, and dysfunction. But that creates a whole list of other problems. 8-hour uninterrupted sleep suppresses natural cortisol rhythm, interrupts emotional processing, and prevents nervous system recalibration. This is why you can sleep a full 8 hours and still wake up exhausted.
Sleep. What do you think? He's right? So many people have sleep issues and, sleep, have their 8 hours or whatever, and wake up tired. What's that all about? And what he's saying kind of makes sense to me. The whole having a sleep to, rest and restore, and then waking up and having time to contemplate, right? To ponder, to think about your life, to think about where you're going and what you want to create, and then you go into the dream state and create that. Like that makes sense to me. And we know we've got massive problems, with insomnia, or at least what's called insomnia. Is that just a symptom of, this whole we need to sleep for 8 hours a day narrative? What do you think? The whole light, electronic light that, we're not going to sleep with the sky clock anymore, right? With the natural rhythms, and it's affecting, our cortisol levels. It's affecting our circadian rhythms, all this kind of stuff. And when I was looking into sleep, years ago, what I found out is that it's a 3-hour cycle that we go through in our mind through the different states, like alpha state, beta, theta, and back again. It's a 3-hour cycle. So that's another reason why if you get 8 hours sleep, you're waking up halfway through a cycle. So that's going to make you tired, right? So I think we're supposed to sleep in, blocks of 3 hours, 6 hours, and maybe 9 hours. That's probably a bit much. I used to sleep 6 hours, for decades, really. And I felt great on it. I was never overtired or anything like that. But I think that, definitely shorter sleep sessions. He said 4 hours, it could be 3. Waking up with a bit of contemplation time in your head, right? In the temple, spend time in the temple and start creating your life consciously. But of course, this is not what they want, right? This is not conducive to industry. This does not make a good slave worker. So they've introduced the clocks, the times, and we all have to get up at the same, time now, right? For a job, you have to get up at a certain time every day. And that again restricts your sleep, right? Because you've got to go to bed at a certain time, and then no matter how far you're into your sleep or your second sleep or whatever, when the alarm goes off, you got to get up and go to your job, right? Because they clearly don't care about the humans, about our potential, about our health, about any of this stuff. They just care about using us as slaves, industry, getting us to work on time and making us productive, right, for their profits. interesting word, right? Prophets. They're in all these religious books, right? But this is what they worship. The Allies, they worship prophets. It's in this. So they've definitely, created a world that is not for us. It's about production, money, and power for them. Where the old world that we see, Tartaria, all the buildings, as far as we can tell, that society was built around empowering us. It was for us. It was to enhance humans. And you can see just in the architecture and stuff how much more advanced and creative they were to us. But let me know your thoughts about sleep. Do you sleep well? Do you wake up tired? Do you have insomnia? What do you think? Are you a dreamer? Because a lot of people are big dreamers. A lot of people don't remember their dreams. Is that also part of this? That we're mixing the rest and restorative sleep with the dream time? Is that why some people can't remember their dreams? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. And also, guys, make sure you do get your own thoughts on this. Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything that the people on the videos say. It's all just information. And the whole point of this is to be autodidactic, right? Self-educated. Come up with your own points of view. Take in information. Don't judge it as good or bad, because as soon as you do that, you can't learn any more from it because you've got the answer. Just, it's interesting, right? Until you get more information and more information. And as you do, you'll start to build your own perspective on all these things.
So one of the first things that I noticed is that you can no longer watch TV. You realize that all the world is a stage, right? And you realize that there are actors that are all acting, whether it looks like they're on a stage or not. It's all a show. All of it. Everything you're seeing, not just when you're watching a movie or a Netflix series, it's all acting. And so when you go to watch something, you just don't even want to support those people because it's just gross.
It's just gross, man. Yeah, all the world is a stage and all the people on it just actors. If you look up, politicians, they will call them actors, right? At least in the movies, they call them actors, but they've got us believing that things that we watch on the screen in the 2D world that they call movies or TV shows, that they are actors and that's all scripted and it's not real. But then at the same time, they've got us believing that if there's people sitting behind a desk and they write the word news behind them, that somehow that's not acting, somehow that's truth, right? When they do their broadcast, when they broadcast their spells. But it is, in my opinion, all a show. It's all fake. And the further we walk down this road, last year especially, and this year, it's all becoming very obvious that it is just a show full of actors, right? The veil is lifting. It's the apocalypse. We can now see through it. But what do you think? Do you think the world's fake? Do you think some of it's fake? Do you think some of it's real? Do you think it's all completely scripted and fake, like Truman Show type things, right? Like there's people around creating all these backdrops and all these narratives and things, and we're just not privy to it. And so we're in this world thinking it's something that it's not. Because I definitely believe that. I believe that we are creators and we have the energy and the souls to create reality, but the Elites don't. And so that's why they do all this stuff, is to use our creative energy. They get us to believe something's real, then we'll create it for them, right? But yeah, let me know your thoughts. How fake is this world? What do you think? Is everyone an actor who's on the TV, on the stage? Is it literally, are we in the Truman Show?
If we do end up in court, could we request subpoena for the fake name to appear? Well, I would go the whole way. I would say, who am I dealing with? Who is the issue of these documents? And who do we hold accountable and liable? And is this a fraud if this party is the one that's, took the action to bring me to the court? Depending on whether it's a notice or an application or whatever it was that was the instrument that brought you there. So you got to ask the right questions there. But if it's not a real person, that's a fraud. If they ask you questions like, what are you talking about? What's that gobbledygook? Or what are you talking about, trustee? Look, Your Honour, with respect, let's not worry about that. For the record, for the second time, I'm here in the office of beneficiary of the estate that you called out. And I guess, therefore, there's another party that's the trustee and has to take care of any liabilities. Isn't that the case? Finish off with a question every time. Are we done? Am I free to go? That's it. No getting caught on fishhooks.
Yes, ask questions, don't make claims. And what he was talking about there is basically just getting, the basics of these, court trials, whatever they're called, sessions, sorted before you actually get into the stuff. Because there's a lot of talk about, I'm not, get in there and don't agree that you're the false name, the straw man name, and you're a living man or woman, and different arguments. But when it gets down to it, like, do they even have the legal right to have you in court? What's this all based upon? Who is the victim? Who is bringing these charges forward? Because it has to be an actual man or woman, right? Or it can't be a fake piece of paper. Like he said, that's fraud. That's fraud, saying that a piece of paper is now trying to charge you with something. And then the whole trustee thing. This is all about, I guess that's why they call it trust. But there is a trust. We all have a trust. It's created at our birth. Seska V Trust that started 1666, all this kind of stuff. We've heard about the fake birth certificate and rah, rah, rah. So basically, this is all about money. This is all about them being able to dip into your trust. That's what all these court proceedings are about. Them robbing you, right? So basically, they act as the beneficiary, which is completely illegal if you agree that you are the legal name, the straw man, and that you come under their power, because that's really what you're agreeing to when you agree you're the name, right? That you're an employee of their corporation, and so you have to abide by their rules, and that can mean that they fine you, right, or imprison you, whatever. But you've agreed to it. So the question is, well, like he said, he turns up and he says, well, I am the custodian for the beneficiary of this trust. I'm here on behalf of the beneficiary, because the beneficiary, the way they've done it, is the straw man. But you are the beneficiary of that trust. They are not, which means you're the only one that can get benefit from it. They are the trustee. They assume all liabilities, which means they have to pay any fines, any costs, anything. They have to do it. From your trust, yes, but they have to pay it, not us. We can only benefit from the trust. And this is the big scam. This is why they're trying to get you to agree that you abide by their rules, and then they can just double dip. So this is the thing with court and law, is always work out what the basics are first. Who's called you into court? Who is this person? Where is the victim? Who's the beneficiary? Who's the trustee? You can ask the judge, do you get any monetary remuneration from this proceeding? And they do, right? Which makes them impartial, which makes it illegal for them to then sit and preside over that hearing. So there's many ways you can do this, but like I always say, do your homework, get in there, learn what you can, and start trying some of it, but take it slowly. You don't want to start driving around in cars and get into arguments with men on the side of the road who have got guns and tasers, right? But this is definitely the way forward. We've got to stop playing their game. And like I said, like he said, we are actually the beneficiaries of all this. We should never be paying for any of their silly fines or anything. I mean, they're all illegal as well. They shouldn't exist, but while they do, we definitely shouldn't be paying for anything.
This is Brian Johnson, okay? Brian Johnson's a millionaire. He spends about $2 million a year on health, okay? He's done some crazy things. So, for example, he has a father and he has a son, and he believes in blood transfusion. So, if you, transfuse the blood, your blood, you become younger. So he's trying to figure out how to live forever. Okay, so he'll do things like blood transfusion. But, he works so hard, man, because he'll get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, exercise. The food he eats It's the most nutritious food in the world. And he'll regulate his sleep. He's always monitoring his heartbeat. He's always exercising. Okay? His life sucks. And the question you have to ask yourself is, if you have so much money, why don't you just enjoy it, you know? Why not just enjoy your life? Why are you focused on living forever, okay? And that's a problem with wealthy people. They're kind of scooping the head, okay? He looks like a vampire, guys, okay? This is him when he first, started this project. And you can see he looks like a vampire now, all right? I'm not exaggerating here. Look at this guy.
A vampire, hey? He spends $2 million a year on his health, on trying to get longevity, right? Live forever, he says. And the whole transfusion thing, I'm pretty sure that's the same guy. He gets transfusions from his son, right? To get the young blood, right? And he believes that's going to give him extended life. Now, we've heard this narrative before, haven't we? We've all seen Sandra Bullock, I'm sure, getting interviewed. I think that was on Ellen, talking about how she rubs certain stuff on her face. We've all heard the narrative about the A chrome, and all this other stuff that they do, all their rituals and sacrifices and spirit cooking and blah, 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 blah. It's very, very blood orientated, isn't it? And they seem to be vampires, right? They seem to have some kind of extended life. We've got all these weird pictures. We've got the doppelgangers from the past. We've got current celebrities changing the way they look, like completely, their bone structure and everything, and we have the whole narrative of, they're all actors, right? And once their role is finished with, they just do another role, right? They just change into someone else. So, he seems to have a lot of traits of these Lites, right? That he's using all this stuff to try and extend his life. And the question is why? Why aren't they just enjoying their life when they've got all this money? Why don't they just enjoy their life? We see all the old, rock stars, pop stars, like the Rolling Stones, they're in their 80s and they're still touring. What's going on there? That they should have hundreds of millions of dollars. Why do they do this? Why do they keep going? Is it because they have extended life, but why do they want to live forever? Is it because they can't get out of here? Because they don't have a soul? Because there's nothing for them at the end of this experience? Like when we leave this realm, I believe, at least in my opinion, that's like a doorway, right? We go through a doorway and into a different reality. We keep going. Do they, is the question, or do they not? Or do they go to a bad place, a lower frequency? Because, I've never met a man or woman, proper human, flesh and blood, man or woman, that wants to live forever. I've never met one. But all these elites seem to want to do it, right? All this stuff that they're doing with transferring consciousness, the whole Project 2045, all this stuff about extended lives and building, artificial bodies to live in and robots and all this kind of stuff. It's not us. It's not what men and women do or want. It's an elite thing. So why do you think that is? I would love to know your thoughts. And there we go, guys. Another one done and dusted. We have come to the end. So thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed that one. Please do give me a like if you enjoyed it. Hype up the video, share it around, and leave me your comments as well. Let me know what you're thinking. And if you haven't subscribed already, what the bloody hell are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell as well, and you'll be notified of all future updates and all that kind of stuff I'm supposed to say. And of course, stay awesome because you are in the next upload. Bye for now.
You are not going back outside.
Kisses?
Say mama. Not you.
And then 18 calories on the rower. Are you following? And then it was, wait, no.